Hello, you're on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we'll discuss the situation in Ukraine as of July 19th, 2025. A large number of significant events have occurred today, so let's get started. We are currently in the midst of the summer military campaign. Right now, in these very seconds and minutes, what's being determined is not only how the summer 2025 military campaign will end, but possibly what will happen all the way up until February or March 2026. It's quite possible that following the conclusion of the decisive battle currently underway, the most important event of 2025, we will begin to see the winding down of the entire special military operation. The current decisive battle is not for the city of Pokrovsk, or for Kostyantynivka, or for Siversk, Lyman, or Kupansk. The most intense fighting is taking place over a small settlement, not quite a village, perhaps more of a town, called Rodinske. It is right here, on this small patch of land just north of Mirnohrad and northeast of the Pokrovsk area, that the fate of Pokrovsk and Kostyantynivka is being decided. More broadly, what is being determined is whether the Russian Federation will succeed in breaking through the Ukrainian armed forces' defenses, perhaps even in breaking the entire structure of the Ukrainian army as a unified force. And during the past night, several crucial events occurred. Let's begin with the fact that Russia launched yet another massive strike using both missiles and drones. As early as this morning, maps were published showing the approximate routes of the drones, cruise missiles, and of course ballistic missiles. If we look at the map, we can identify three key strike areas. These were the city of Zhytomyr and its surrounding area, the city of Odessa, and the town of Pavlohrad, located to the east of the city of Dnipro. These were not the only explosions, there were also blasts in Kharkiv, or rather had been, slightly west of Dnipro. Something went off in Kiev and also in Shostka. But when it comes to these particular strikes, it appears they were intended to suppress Ukraine's air defense systems, so that the main strike could be delivered to those three key locations: Zhytomyr, Odessa, and Pavlohrad. Regarding Zhytomyr, it's hard to say for sure, but perhaps the target was weapons depots holding Western arms, because currently there's a large flow of weaponry coming from Poland. It's likely that some of it passes through Zhytomyr, and some might be temporarily stored there for rapid deployment to the front line later. As for Odessa, the logic behind those strikes is also understandable. In fact, today footage from objective control sources was published, showing what happened overnight in Odessa. It seems the city is a major logistics hub for supplies coming from Romania and via the Danube River and the Black Sea, all toward the front line. The Russian side appears to be doing everything possible to disrupt these supplies, aiming to destroy as many weapons, equipment, rockets, tanks and vehicles as possible, all of which are flowing not only toward the decisive battle, but also toward the Kupansk and Sumy sectors. So the strikes on Odessa are quite understandable, and a large number of videos confirm the hits. But the most interesting target today is clearly Pavlohrad. It lies east of the city of Dnipro and was hit the hardest. Let's look at the map again for clarity. Here's the map. Zhytomyr is here, Odessa is here, and you can see dozens of small yellow, red and blue lines all heading straight toward Pavlohrad. There were many explosions, detonations, and secondary blasts reported there. Pavlohrad sits at a crucial railway junction. Some of the railway lines continue southeast toward Pokrovsk, Novopavlivka, Huliaipole, and Orikhiv. Some of the equipment moves east and northeast toward Slovyansk, Kostyantynivka, and of course to Kharkiv and Kupansk. Just last night, the Ukrainian side tried to transfer everything possible from western Ukraine to the east, in a desperate attempt to stabilize the front line and halt the collapse of their defenses, which is now happening in real time before our eyes. It appears that the Russian side succeeded in destroying a significant amount of Ukrainian equipment and weaponry. Reports coming from the Pokrovsk agglomeration, more precisely from the Rodinska area, suggest that within the next few days, the map in this area may shift significantly in favor of the Russian Federation. We're hardly receiving any geolocation updates from that direction anymore. The last confirmed advance was a few days ago, but this doesn't mean the area is quiet or stabilized. In fact, it is the site of the most intense combat in the entire special military operation to date. Russia is now conducting a unique operation to completely encircle the Pokrovsk agglomeration, advancing behind Ukrainian lines through Rodinske and trying to punch through the Ukrainian front. The penetration is deep, and of course the Russian forward units are constantly under attack. Still, if we turn to the few messages, reports, and short articles that make it through all the filters and censorship, some information does get out. Although it's vague and unclear, sources close to the ground situation report that they've received an update on the situation along the Dobropilya-Rodinske line. The author describes the situation as very bad. It's also said that what's currently unfolding along that line, the northern pincer around Pokrovsk, is drastically different from what is being presented in open sources. In other words, what you're seeing on your screens might be far from the actual reality on the ground. So we're waiting, and it seems this information blackout may last a while. There are also reports that Russian forces are completing the clearing of Novotoretsk. Additionally, some forward Russian units have reportedly entered the village of Zapovdna. That's a small village west of Mayak. In recent days, we've also received updates about Suketske, Rodinske itself, and of course, the Krasnolimanska mine. This is where one of the most important battles of 2025 is unfolding. There's also word that the settlement of Novekonomichne is on the brink of collapse. In the near future, we may see new geolocations and perhaps even an official report from the Ministry of Defense about what's really happening there. Another notable update comes from northeastern Ukraine. Today, footage has been released showing strikes on the town of Shostka. Several glide bombs hit Ukrainian armed forces positions. Possibly some storage depots were destroyed, potentially fuel depots. Based on this footage, we can expect the intensity of combat in this area to increase soon. As usual, the Ukrainian side has issued its own statements about the performance of its air defense systems and how the past night went. According to Ukrainian sources, everything was intercepted or suppressed, though perhaps a few missiles did reach their targets. But if we return to the videos that were published overnight, the real picture appears to be very different. There were numerous explosions, lots of destroyed equipment, and probably destroyed depots. Of course, we still need more information before drawing clear conclusions, but that's where things stand for now. So let's move to the front line and try to understand what is actually happening there. Let's begin with the Dnipropetrovsk sector, where Russian forces continue their advance in the northwestern direction. A very interesting situation has developed here over the past 2 days. The Russian army is confidently advancing northwest. Only a few villages may still be under Ukrainian control. These include Oleksandrohrad, Andriivka, Klevtsove, Zelenyi High, and possibly Hrushivska. Some of these settlements, like Hrushivska, are already marked as contested zones. But something curious happened yesterday. Ukrainian sources published footage from objective surveillance. In these clips, we can observe the actions of Ukraine's 20th Army Corps. The key moment comes in the final seconds of the video. We see 2 Ukrainian soldiers raising a flag in the northern part of the settlement of Voskresenka, a symbolic gesture claiming the village remains under Ukrainian control. Another video from the Yalta area was also published on July 18th. In it, one Ukrainian flag is raised in that general area, and another one even farther west, in a small patch of brush not even inside Yalta proper. With these clips, Ukraine tried to counter the media narrative that the Russian army is steadily advancing in this area. And for a while, this did cause confusion among mapmakers. Should they revert the control zones or not? But eventually it became clear that this was a media stunt by Ukraine during their final retreat. Moreover, some independent mapmakers even updated their maps, shading in surrounding fields and tree lines in favor of the Russian armed forces. Today, this is exactly what we're seeing around Voskresenka. Both pro-Ukrainian and neutral cartographers are updating their maps. All of this suggests the Russian army is gradually closing in on the next settlement to the west, in the Donetsk region, Oleksandrohrad. FPV drones are actively targeting Ukrainian vehicles and troops moving in the area, and it's clear Ukrainian units are struggling to hold their positions. Slightly to the north, the Russian army continues advancing along the H-15 highway from Podubna, moving northwest toward Oleksandriivka, Andriivka, and Klevtsove. Several tree lines have come under Russian control, though the pace of advance remains slow for now. It appears Russian forces are waiting for their flanks to be cleared and for the front line to be properly aligned. Further north, pro-Ukrainian cartographers from the Deep State team report that Russian troops have entered and entrenched themselves in the southeastern part of the settlement of Zeleny High. Fierce fighting is ongoing there. This is one of the last settlements before entering Dnipropetrovsk region. In the coming days, most of the major updates will likely come from this area, and based on previous experience, we can assume that Zeleny High could be fully cleared within the next 3 or 4 days. So let's keep an eye on this area. The Russian army is gradually approaching the regional border. This would mark the actual boundary between two Ukrainian regions. Naturally, the question arises, what will the Vostok East Group do next? Most likely, they will begin more intensive operations in coordination with the Dnieper Group, advancing into both Zaporizhzhia and possibly Dnipropetrovsk regions. Now let's move to Pokrovsk. As we said, the main developments are happening around Rodinska. More and more reports and authors are suggesting the situation here is completely different from what is being shown. Most mapmakers estimate with high confidence that Russian forces are already deep into the western outskirts, possibly inside Rodinska itself. We await further information, as this battle could determine much going forward. South of Kostyantynivka, Russian forces have also launched a decisive offensive. Today, various sources report that the Russian armed forces now control up to 90% of Yablonivka. This is confirmed by both pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian sources. Ukraine controls only about 10% of the village along the H20 highway, possibly maintaining a corridor for evacuation. But 10% is very little, and it's likely that in the coming hours, Russia will fully clear the settlement with an official announcement from the Ministry of Defense to follow. As of now, however, the July 19th MOD report has no updates on Yablonivka. That may change soon. Meanwhile, other reports say Russian troops have entered Oleksandra Kalinove and are now advancing north. Overall, the southwestern sector of the Kupansk pocket, including the reservoir area, is now almost entirely under Russian control. Front lines are expected to be straightened there shortly. Southeast of the Kupansk reservoir, fighting continues for the settlement of Sherbinivka. Despite the extremely uncomfortable layout of the front line for Ukrainian troops, they are holding on to every square kilometer. Still, the Russian army is advancing. Today, reports suggest Russian forces have crossed beyond Donetsk and are moving across fields west of the spoil heaps, Terrakons, stepping towards Sherbinivka. There's also a high chance that both Sherbinivka and Pivnichne will soon fall under Russian control. After that, battles may begin for Katerinivka and Kupansk, but it seems unlikely that Ukrainian forces will be able to hold these two settlements for long, due to severe logistical and supply issues. The only scenario in which they might cling on is if they're fully encircled and simply refuse to surrender. As for Chasiv Yar, again, no major updates. Russian forces continue working on Ukrainian positions between Kostyantynivka and Chasiv Yar, but no rapid gains have been reported. The same is true for the Siversk sector. Despite constant activity from Russian artillery and drones, there have been no significant developments to report. No evidence has surfaced indicating that Russian troops have reached the northeastern outskirts of the town. The same goes for the entire Kupiansk front. Even though Russian forces have significantly improved their positions, no territorial gains have been confirmed. However, it seems that the focus of the offensive is shifting. After blocking Lyman from the north and northeast, the Russian army is turning its attention to the Borova area. There's been a lot of geolocated footage coming from this direction. All of the clips you're seeing now were published around July 18th to 19th. They show the Russian army actively operating along the line toward the village of Chernyshine, which is now nearly encircled. There may be plans to completely eliminate this salient, cutting from the Nitrius River northward toward Kupansk and Vishnev. This would help align the front line and bring Russian forces up to Borova, putting the town under siege. Meanwhile, fighting continues in the Borova area, particularly along the lines between Zeleny High and the Borivsky-Andreevka corridor. There have been some minor map adjustments based on footage released by the Ukrainian side, including FPV drone strikes. But the situation here is murky. there's not enough information yet to understand exactly what's going on. In the North Kupansk sector and northeast Kharkiv region, there's been minor Russian progress toward Kutnev and Ambane from the direction of Milov. Pro-Ukrainian cartographers have slightly updated the maps to reflect this. So even though the pace is slow, this front remains active and the Russian army is advancing steadily. And of course, the most interesting area is Vovchansk. Fighting continues for the forested area west of the town. Ukraine's 57th Brigade is trying to stabilize the situation, but without success. Russia now fully controls the northern part of the forest and has established a secure foothold there. It's likely that more troops are being deployed to the area, and the only question is when the assault on southern Vovchansk will begin. Possibly very soon. As for the Sumy front, there have also been some small updates west of Yunikivka, published by various cartographers. Overall, both pro-Ukrainian and neutral sources agree that Yunikivka is now either under Ukrainian control or in a grey zone, so we can expect new updates or statements from the Russian Ministry of Defense soon. That's all for today, dear friends. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and all the best to you.